television always turns on at 11. I keep iced tea in the fridge, and I collect buttons in glass jars. On Fridays, I get my hair done by Natalie. And I buy Atterman's coffee cake, even though it's too expensive. I pay $9 to get my lawn cut on Wednesdays, and I always balance my checkbook on Thursdays. I remember a house, blue, with a front porch and yellow tiles in the bathroom. I love red lipstick and those Jell-O molds with the marshmallows in them. In the back room, there is a bike I never rode, and whiskey we never drank. I hate the way that potatoes taste when they're not done all the way. And the way the walkway gets with a lot of snow. Ugh. Now, I'm here. Hi. Since I was a kid, I have always loved to make stuff and bring people together. So I'm so happy to be with you here tonight and sharing all these different kinds of things that I do, especially in such an integrated way with people from so many different fields and places and ages, and I couldn't be happier about it. I wanted to always create experiences that could share in the way that other people lived and the way that they died, what they remembered, what they were missing, what they loved, hated, hoped, and feared for, what made them laugh. Theater seemed to be the best place for me to be able to practice and integrate all these things, so I became a theater practitioner. And as an adult, recently, I realized that my play, even though it's a play, started to become work, and I started to leave love out. Things these original intentions started to become a bit disintegrated. So why should I continue to invest so much time and effort and passion into this work? What was my connection to that original intention on committing to this kind of theater, this kind of creativity, these kinds of conversations? Why had I started doing all of this in the first place? What gas was I still running on? What was my question? What was I asking the world? What was my own practice? Like all fields, theater is not limited unto itself, but it is one way of looking at the world and then sharing what we see. So what have I been wanting to share? This summer, I started to look at my work through the lens of compassionate creativity and started to ask the question, how do I cultivate compassionate creativity in myself and my communities? Now, when I just said compassion, something happened in your mind. It might have been I don't think I'm supposed to be at this lecture, even though it was called that. I wonder what happened in your mind. Can we just popcorn? When I say compassion, what does it remind you of?
Lotus flower.
Lotus flower? My mother? Family? Mother?
Caregiving.
Gentle? Caregiving? Understanding.
Unconditional.
Forgiveness. Empathy. Forgiveness. And what about creativity? What are words that come up when I say creativity or images?
Fun.
Fun?
Crayons.
Crayons? That's okay.
Innovation.
Innovation.
Sharing.
Rainbow. Sharing.
Freedom.
Divergence.
Freedom.
Freedom.
Storytelling.
Storytelling.
Music.
Music.
Bailey.
Thanks, Kit. So we all have very different relationships to these words. And in starting to call my work compassionate creativity, I went, well, what does that mean? What am I actually saying? I started to join these two words together. So the way that I started to practice and find out more about what this meant was by creating a group with 111 people around the world called the Compassionate Creativity Contagion. We are practicing daily values around compassionate creativity every day for the last 111 days of the year. We started on September 11th. Are there 111 members in here? Oh, a lot of them. Okay, so afterwards you could ask any of these folks about this at the reception. So we started daily looking at values and how to share around our experiences and stories of these values. There is a Facebook platform. Sometimes there's different kinds of exchanges and sharing. I just wanted to show you a couple of the values. So number one. Next one. Be a tourist in your own neighborhood. That was this greater neighborhood. Ask what if and why not. Ask elders what it was like for them. Listen as long as they will share. This is one of my favorite ones. Talk to strangers. Know that you have the power to change the atmosphere of a room, community, the world. Remain playful. So in the weeks of sharing, there's always a review. Not everybody's on the Facebook platform. People are sharing in different ways. This was a word cloud looking at in week 1 what were the most words that came up statistically. We can move on. And these are some of the pictures that were shared amongst people in different ways. We can keep paging through. At one point, Clara, who's here, decided had a what if around what if we could do voice telegrams as part of stories. So she called 5 people throughout the country and gave them these little stories and connected with them, which was really fun. A lot of looking at the head versus the heart versus the gut, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Great. So here's where the people are. It's amazing how the sharing has happened over a distance and the comfortability around being able to support somebody from far away. It's way more powerful, way more needed, and way more affecting me than I ever would have thought it would. There are people on 4 continents, 10 countries, and 25 states participating. And I don't know, we're on almost to day 30 now, and going forward. I'll start a new program of this on January 1st for the first time in 11 days of the year, and you're more than welcome to join. Today I'd like to look at value number 83, which is tell stories that ignite health and healing amongst those who work, love, and play with. So how do we do this? We can't change what has happened to ourselves or someone else, but amazingly so, we can change the way that we think about it or the way that they think about it by telling a new story about that. New stories. At the bookends of life, as children and elders, we tend to be better storytellers. Children are constantly making stuff up. Elders want to reminisce and reminisce. I wonder about how your storytelling has changed and evolved over time. What stories would you tell differently at the age that you chose tonight? That might be something that you share as part of the reception. So psychologist David Elkin talks about work, love, and play as this essential trio: head, heart, and gut. Inborn drives that power human thought and action throughout our lives. When we are children, these drives are absolutely integrated. We do all those things together. We curiously explore into the unknown, making stuff, learning about new things, figuring stuff out, ways to do maybe things better. Love, work, and play integrated, tend to become, or we could look back on it, is that was the kernel of what would become of our life's practice. One of the organizations that I've worked for that Jay mentioned, called Clowns Without Borders, it's like Doctors Without Borders, but ambassadors of laughter that go into crisis zones and create spaces for children who might not usually be able to be able to play again. The founder of this organization, Tortel Patrona, a clown doctor from Spain, said something that completely changed the way that I breathed. He pinpointed that we stop being children when we realize our mortality. What was that moment for me? The one that I began to learn about death, this revelation of time and endings and the vaster unknown. Maybe a moment where my parents might have said, she grew up in that instant. I wonder about what that was for you, if you remember it, if you knew it at the time. A moment when we all began to look at our world and relationship to it in a new way. Without it being a conscious decision, we started to maybe fill our time differently because it was limited time. Love, work, and play started to maybe become disintegrated, individuated, or separated out from one another. For example, work might be a place that you only go to earn a living. Love might be just what you do to find a partner and raise a family. Play's a challenging one. It might be the thing that you just do as entertainment on the weekend if you see time for it, if I see time for it. And time is key. As we all begin to realize that we aren't here forever, we start to see through this other kind of lens of productivity, where work, logic, intellect, reason, quantitative results, efficiency, understandably, tend to become the center of our world, our focus, our intentions, and the way that we begin to relate to one another. We begin to value what we know over what we don't know. And our childlike seeing and curiosity for and being affected by and asking questions about simply becomes looking at, passing by, a sort of skepticism, a questioning. I don't want to have to see that guy asking me for money every day. Our listening becomes merely hearing. I don't want to overreact when I hear your bad news. We become numb, or we can become numb, not wanting to show what affects us. So play, this thing that encourages us to wake up, to embrace the unknown, is such a challenge to measure, becomes devalued or left out. How we tell stories then dramatically changes. Binaries, labels, and categories begin to tell limited stories that create conflict. Right and wrong, good and bad, love and hate. That has to do with me, and that doesn't have to do with me. Those are artists, and those aren't artists. Kids will be over there. People over 65, they're going to stay over there. People who have money will live up there. People who don't have money might be over there. People who are educated are over there, and people who aren't educated, I'm not sure. Doctors are over there. Theater artists are over there. Teachers are over there. Patients are over there. Politicians are under there. So, where is our common ground? The commonality between all of us tonight is that we all came from somewhere and we're all going to somewhere. Something that's really easy to forget. So I just want us to look at a little bit of a practice around this. If you could, turn to the person next to you. If you don't know them, you're going to introduce yourself. And you're simply just going to tell them a 1-minute version of your day up until now. The story of how you arrived here tonight. And just simply exchange those stories. Yeah? Try it. Thank you.
Hi, Miranda. Nice to meet you. You know that we should be telling each other the stories of our day. Today I went to an activity downtown. We got up and had a
Great, so now that you know each other a little bit better, here's the second part of this. Now you're going to tell the story that you just heard from your partner back to them as if it was an epic hero's journey. Okay? You might have had a little crap moment when I just said that about your own story. Pardon?
An epic what?
Epic hero's journey. Yeah? So, for example, if my partner was Daniel, my awesome colleague here, yesterday we were saying if his story was about taking his car into the shop and that he maybe was late for class, I was saying that his huge spaceship, it was breaking into a million pieces, and suddenly he had to take it into the special cave so that he could get to being able to deliver his magic potions. Okay? So, even if you just tell 3 tiny parts of their story, in terms of those 3 moments of it being an epic hero's journey, play with that, yeah? Give that gift to your partner. Go ahead.
Good, how are you? I'm gonna make some Some of those stories could have been put on pause. They could be continued. You might exchange emails even or something, okay? Tell me about the energy of the room in that second half. Words to talk about that. Boisterous. Boisterous. Hands flying. Excited.
Playful, exhausting.
Limitless.
Animated.
Bubbly.
Bubbly. Amazing.
Panic.
Sometimes those things all go together, don't they? Yeah. Can we have just a few popcorns of people reclaiming their day as an epic hero's journey? Just maybe one thing that you want to announce that you did today as that epic hero's journey. Does anybody have one?
For the other person?
Yeah, but now owning it as your own. So I might say today I woke up and I met with the king.
I woke up and my head was on fire, and I dove into the ocean down to the depths. I rolled around with octopuses.
Juicy story. I want to know more. Yeah.
I woke up and battled a 1,000-headed dragon named Physics and won.
One more example over here. Anybody?
Village.
So you saved the village.
The
village. Thank you. So 2 things happened in this play. We really began to just see and listen to one another. And 2, we began to reframe our partner's story. How do we do this? Through a vehicle which we like to call metaphor, right? This need
for one another in order to see ourselves as heroes in our own story is integral. If you cannot see yourself as a hero in your own story, how are you going to help someone else, let alone yourself, be in a healthy story going forward? Yeah? How can we do this for one another more often? I wonder, and I remind myself as I ask you, who are you casting as the victim, villain, and hero in your current stories? Micro or macro? A playwright friend of mine, Joe Carson, used to say, do not wreck a good story by sticking to the facts. Yeah? This use of metaphor, this language that we have that's part of us, that's like a sense, or it's written in our bones, to be able to turn things into other things. A really amazing process that doesn't just look at the product. I use objects to do this, common household objects, old objects, that we all may have an association with. So, a girl who's trying to tell her mother, I don't want to, it's just, I'm so sorry, Mom. If you are saying what I think you are saying, well then I have no idea how to. You can pack your bag tonight and be out by morning. When you get there, you must promise me that you will never tell anyone your name or what bus you took. Don't worry, sweetheart. It's only a matter of time before you're right back here, and we will forget any of this ever happened. Don't you think about tomorrow? Let tomorrow come and go.
directly reflected in the product. And two, they start to do the work of turning things into other things. This work and practice of metaphor. So maybe you just saw this as a lot of different kinds of things, and that was probably different than the person next to you. That end image that I do where I put the ironing board on my back, I thought of it as baggage, I thought of it as different things, I played with the objects, saw what they could do, and somebody in a talk back said, the moment of ultimate sacrifice when you put in that biblical image, and I didn't quite know what this woman was talking about. And yet, she completely believed that that's what had happened. That was her story, and she owned it. Yeah? And I wonder if possibly in the theater, by practicing metaphor, when we then go out on the street, what if we were able to see someone as being a new kind of someone else? What if I was able to see myself as you, and or be able to tell a new kind of story about that? The way that I look at this metaphor is that it's really a doorway into empathy, that relationship between us where we're able to start to see again instead of just looking at. It's those moments that wake us up where we start to go, oh, I thought you were tired yesterday. I'm tired too. I'm really tired. Yeah? And how I do this is through physicality. So a lot of times, my colleague here, Daniel Stein, says, always, what's true in the physical world usually tends to be true in the metaphysical world. That's a big one. So if I put my body, and we can go forward, we jumped over refrain, that's okay. We employed metaphor. We're breathing in empathy. We're looking at embodiment. So when I start to put my body into a shape, and I breathe in that shape, I start to feel what that shape might feel like. Tired. My hands feel different. I feel like people are looking at me differently. I feel like I start to touch into my voice. I start to find gestures. I start to find an evolution of play, of what I want. I would like a cab, please, for Eleanor Butler to 143 Priest Street, Buffalo, New York.
What day of the week is it, Eleanor?
What?
The date, Eleanor. What is today's date?
Well, Stephanie was born in April. I think
What season are we in?
Oh, the worst.
What floor are we on?
Floor? I've always wanted to live on the first floor. That way, when you have groceries and you
What
have...
country are we in?
I'd like to go to Madagascar. What do you say? If we went to Madagascar, all the people there, what would they look like?
Repeat after me. Lemon, key, ball.
But if you want me to hear you, you're going to have to speak to me right here. Do you understand me? Do you understand me?
Eleanor, could you please take away 7 from 100?
Why would I want to do that?
Okay, now I'm going to give you the name and address.
Name and address.
Repeat it
No.
after me.
No, I
said that we are all going to go to
Read
143 Tree Street, where I'm originally from.
Denver, New York.
We're going to go to my...
14075.
No, 14220. We can all get there. We can all go together to my house. And it's very nice.
Eleanor?
What? I'm just trying to tell...
Eleanor.
I'm trying to give the people
What
direction.
is the name of our current president?
President. Oh, the George something. There are so many of them. George. Oh, I know. This one is not invited to our party.
How old are you?
How old am I? I don't think that's a very appropriate question, Doctor. You don't ask a lady her age. May 27th, 1916. You figure it out.
Eleanor?
What?
Which 3 words did I ask you to remember?
Words? Oh, I know. Ball. Oh, I got one. What? Has 100 balls and screws old ladies. Does anybody know this one? Anybody? 100 balls and screws old ladies? Bingo!
Spell world backwards.
B22! All 30. I got a coverall once down at the hall, and I yelled bingo so loud everybody went whoop and jumped, and it was my board. I won.
Now I'm going to give you a letter from the alphabet.
Okay.
And I would like you to generate as many words as you can, beginning with that letter.
A game. It's kind of a
Eleanor?
game. Yes.
Are you listening?
Well, yeah, I'm listening, but
Are you ready?
Not yet. Please wait.
You've got 1 minute, and the letter is P.
Okay, hold on a second. I love games. P. Party. Pre Street, and we're going to have a party. And all of you are going to. I'm gonna make potatoes, and I'll make pierogies. P, and we'll all be there. We'll all be there together, partaking on Pre's party. If we all go there, maybe it's possible. Possibly. What is that you say when you really want somebody to do something that you don't know? Please come with me. Please come to my house and we all just come there. If we're all together, then...
Please name as many kinds of animals as you can.
Animals? I hate animals. Oh, I got one. Wait. Okay. A little old lady in a nursing home holds up her fist and says, "Who can ever guess what's in my hand can have sex with me tonight?" And a little old man in the back of the nursing home, well, he stands up and yells, "An elephant!" And the little old lady says, "Close enough." Close enough!
Close your eyes.
No. Keep them open. Please.
Close your eyes.
Keep them open. They're trying to trick you. They're trying to trick all of us. No. Listen to me. I'm the one who should be talking here, not you. Listen. In our country, there is more money being spent on Viagra and breast implants than there is on Alzheimer's disease. This means that by the year 2050, there are going to be a lot of people walking around with huge boobs and big willies, and they will have no idea what to do with them! You're all looking at me. I'm looking at you, too. I'm fine. embodiment. Listen, honey. Your granddaughter's here to see you. Somebody not knowing what to do. I'm sure, well, I'm sure that you're going to have so many things to do. You have 91 years of stuff floating around up there. So I want you to go out and have a good time. And when you get back, well, when you get back, honey, you can tell me all about it, sweetheart. Maybe even 100 times. Love, work, and play. Seeing and listening. Employing metaphor. Your hero's journey. Embodiment. Empathy. Gratitude.
Questions? I mean, it's tough to just sort of say questions. I mean, you have to like, absorb it and just sort of just take a deep breath and just sort of exhale. But we want to open this up to your responses, your questions, your what's going through your mind. And,
Maybe we could even start that just by popcorning words or images that are rolling around now. Sometimes it's difficult to turn things into words or questions right away. Any images or things that you're still thinking about or remembering? Or, yeah.
Oh, that last image of the trade scene was like, that hit me really hard. My grandmother went through Alzheimer's. And I've written a play about Alzheimer's and caregiving with her. And just that, there were a lot of metaphors. Sure, it was like I was flooded with them in that. All the way through, multiple metaphors. It's just not singular.
Could you maybe give us one of the images or one of the things that you turned something into or connected to? Or even in relationship to the show that
The daughter on the table, on the bed, on the ironing board on the bed, being pregnant. And it was very real. I mean, that fabric turned into something really amazing. It brought reality to me. That was real. I've seen it in real life. And so that was close enough because my imagination is so far.
Thank you. Other images, questions? Anything? You also just take a good breath in and out.
Really loved how you gave us the bare minimum.
Speak up just a little bit.
I really loved how you just gave us the bare minimum. I feel like you were all honestly, I feel like you were trying to communicate emotion
with associations with this, with this, with this, not necessarily the same associations. And it's what Daniel Stein likes to call the ness of the object. Like, what is ironing board ness? You know, there's things that an ironing board do that does, you know, straighten stuff, flatten stuff, has clean stuff on it. So how do we amplify those things and turn those ideas into more than that? So I feel like I'm in partnership with an audience because you already bring all of this stuff about this. And so I'm then able to play and push off of and work with that meeting of the two of us, or all of us, through that original association or understanding. Yeah, Barry?
So the word game that you played with the letter P, is that in your script? Or is that in the discovery of a relationship here?
It's a newer thing. I know that there's going to be a party, and that I want all of you to be there, but I don't necessarily know all the things that I'm going to say. In Vermont last weekend when I was performing, I hung out with a 4-year-old right before my show, and he kept saying, "What's that word? What's that word I'm supposed to use when I want something?" So I said, thanks, Pi. I'm going to try that in the show today, because it was that search for the word so that please came out of him last weekend. So it's always evolving. It's the best and the hardest thing about creating your own work is that you can always change it. Yeah, so I'm up here playwriting and acting and directing and just being with you at the same time, which is amazing.
Somehow it makes me think of, it feels Walt Whitman-esque in a way, because everything you come in contact with becomes material for you to engage and give back and merge with.
Thank you. It was a real challenge. I've never been in a space like this. It was an amazing, amazing space. And when I first came into it and saw it, I didn't know what would happen here. But yesterday the chairs were all set up toward that lectern. And it just didn't feel like what the space wanted. And so we weren't even going to have these installations here today. But Jeff, my wonderful, wonderful friend and colleague, said, well, what if we had something that like kind of barriered off the space, like, barriered off the space.
I used the P word.
What?
I used the P word.
You did?
Partition.
Partition. Thank you. You can see why this is a good thing. So all of a sudden I went, well, actually, yeah, I do have this clothesline and it was the evolution of how to use this space and turn this space into a place that feels more like a play zone. And I know that things are usually projected on the screen that comes down right there from over there. So I kind of wrestled with that and went, just use it like it is. But I thought, but this is a shade, and we could project on it. So how to be with what already exists and, keep playing is what I'm interested in. Yeah.
So when I first walked in, I put down a certain number that I wanted to be, and then I changed it to 6. And I wasn't thinking, I just put 6 down there. And then when we started talking about play, and then we did this whole thing about this heroes thing, it's like, that's why I did it. Because I had this memory of having no rules and nothing being put on me. And not too long ago, I was in Starbucks, and a little girl came up, was twirling around with her little ruby red slippers, and she said, "I can dance." And she just was all over it. And I thought, okay, when do we lose that? And so this whole bit of play, when we did this, this hero's journey, and it reminds me, I've worked with small children in movement, and now I teach dance to people with Parkinson's, and they're getting that too. And so we have young children, and we have the aging population, which I think is so much more willing to play, but there's this big place in between where we just don't allow that. And it was so fun to be able to come in here and play in that space, and then to play with our partner through imagination. And I just think it's something to really think about incorporating in our lives. And to that point, a friend spoke with me recently, and I could hear some sadness in her voice, and she said, I've just read a book on laughter, and we're integrating that in our family now. Laughter, it's a simple thing, but people don't do it. You know?
The second half of that quote from Cons Without Borders is that laughter are little moments of immortality, right? And that changing the way that we breathe, one, unites us, touches on empathy. And I, you know, when I came into the space yesterday, I had what I call an oh crap moment. How do I do this in here? This isn't, you know. And I wonder about when we have those kinds of moments, how we can, instead of shutting down space, really use them to create space, or let them be little windows or portals, in especially during our adult life, to go, oh, I could create here if I just listen to where I am, not where I expect it to be. And if I could listen to what's in, oh, I see a slide, okay, maybe I'll pick up the slide, you know? So that how we create in those moments and how we learn about one another in those moments, not what we do, but how we negotiate our own crap moments. Really interesting. Yeah, my class is smiling here because we do it in class, the whole class right here, because we do that in a movement class this semester. Hold on.
You know, I love it when you were trying to get the association with what people think about compassion, what they think about creativity. And it's funny that when I think about creativity, you know, the one word that sort of people don't usually talk about, but I think is absolutely essential to it, is failure. You know, and taking risks, and you know, we can't succeed and do something that's fiercely original, or be empathic in a way that perhaps has not been engaged in before, and not following a script on how you think you're supposed to be empathic. But I think it also takes a certain amount of courage and a certain amount of permission, especially when you're sort of starting out, that failure is okay. Can you sort of talk about how you, first of all, engender that sort of confidence in your students, and how you sort of work through the failures that you encounter in the process of doing work such as this, which is very, very different, obviously very powerful.
Sure. The first thing that comes to mind is that I always give myself a deadline. So, for example, this show that was, it's evolved a lot, but it was a show from 8 years ago. I put it in a festival and had to do it. And 4 weeks before, I still didn't know what it was going to be. I had all these objects, I loved them. The show was called something completely different than it ended up being. But I knew that I had to meet people. I knew that I had to deliver something at that time. So that's one way. I think I also, you know, I mean, it happened many times in the last 48 hours. This is not a form that I usually do. So I had a lot of oh crap moments. And I kept having that faith that I think of my work like a lot of islands. So I knew that the ID was going to be here. I knew that Steph might come. I knew that Jeff was going to come at 5. I knew that I was going to talk to Daniel on the phone at 11 o'clock at night. These islands of ways to connect and also have help, that they're all somehow going to migrate together. So I know they're connected underwater, but I don't know how they're all going to end up being part of the same land. And yet tonight it just kind of happened, so to continue to be in that process. And students, I think one of the ways that we look at this, and I would love to hear what any of the students that are here tonight that I've worked with have to say, is looking at how we give people, if we send people into a field and go, make something, they're going to run screaming into the night, right? If we can do anything, we're probably going to do nothing. It's just too big, it's too immense, the possibilities are overwhelming. So I think about talking about students, even a project we had this past week had a list of like light bulbs, little light posts, so that instead of going, we have to go do this scene or we have to go do this work,
they get right brain, left brain connection in terms of going, I'm going to check off these things. Or if I don't know what to do, I can go near one of those light posts and be around it, and at least hold on to it for a little while, and see what happens. So they have enough knowns, and I even did a thing in a class this summer, a pre-college leadership program this summer, where if somebody didn't have enough knowns, they could raise their hand and go, oh, I need more. So then I would come to them and give them another thing to push against so that they were able to create. Are there any students that have more thoughts on that, or ways that we led? Anything?
I mean, you asked specifically about failure, but I think what I learned in Clown last semester was that failure is just another oh crap moment. It's just another moment of, oh wait, things aren't going the way that I expected them to go, or the way that I anticipated they would go. How do I handle that? How do I go forward? And how do I do it in a way that sort of respects myself, if you will?
I'm really intrigued that the word failure came up. Because for myself, I've come to feel okay about creativity, not having judgment. So therefore, failure wouldn't really be involved. And when I said panic before, it was because I didn't feel I could create something that quickly that would then be acceptable or even good enough. But it also brings to mind, especially with what you were doing, with the work around death and dying, a story I shared with you around my own dad, who in his dying process said, I read a booklet that I gave him from hospice, and after he read it, he said, this is the most uplifting thing I've ever read. And I said, no kidding, why? He said, because I thought I was a failure. He said, and I'm not, I'm doing it right. So I hope I'm making sense. But this is kind of what, every time I see you perform, kind of where I go with it, is it's almost like I want to stretch everything to make it make sense, and it doesn't all make sense easily, it just feels somewhat right. Or wrong, and that's okay. It's not a failure, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm not trying to give answers. I'm trying to explore really complex questions, and this is the best way that I know how to do it. One of the other investments in compassionate creativity, and I just want to mention it, is that I'm in a chorus with Jody called Grace Note Singers. That's a new chorus of women. That there's 50, almost 50 women in Providence that we get together once a month and all sing together. And then there are smaller teams that go and sing at the bedsides of folks undergoing palliative care or in the process of dying or at hospice. And yeah, there's a lot there. So I have some of those cards of that organization if you want or need them. And it's just a great thing to be able to know about. So, thank you. Just to finish off, can everybody just hold one thing, one word even, around compassionate creativity and or how to tell stories that ignite health and healing? Anything, just notice one word that you have that you're taking with you here. Just might be a little stake in the ground that you can return to at some point if you want or need. Can we just raise our hands with those? Can we hear a couple of them? Anybody willing to share those? Listen.
Smile.
Smile. Laugh.
Space.
Space.
More than your history.
More than your history. Rose?
Question?
Question. Danny? Reframe it. Can we just raise our hands with all of those words? And Daniel and I, at the end of our classes, always inhale all of those things, and then say, have a peaceful and productive day, and hit the ground with all of the work, love, and play that we partook in today together. Have a peaceful and productive day.